I'm Xanderwood. I make indie games and tutorials on game development. I also play your indie games every week on my channel. Make sure you subscribe and click that bell icon so you never miss a video. Before we start, just a massive shout out to James Welch, Basic Terror, Colzang, Clone 13, Foozle CC, Jet Simon, Olivia Bernier, Arthur Wawajas, Retro Galaxy, Fan Van, Amari Lewis, Endmark Games, and Seth Coble for supporting my game dev journey. If you want to become part of the Patreon family, get your name on the board and receive free pixel art tile sets and royalty-free music every month. There is a link in the description to check out the tiers on offer. Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to make a destructible block in this episode, so let's get right to it. Let's double click into the tile background. I want to copy that one. Control C on the keyboard. And then we're going to make a sprite. Double click anywhere you like. Click on sprite. Click anywhere you like. It's going to be 16 by 16. Push Control V to paste it in. Now we need to make these. Oh, look at the image point is way off. Make sure we put the image point in a consistent place. Top left is fine. Now we need to make these somewhat distinguishable so we know that they are something different to the background and can be interacted with. So let's see how the original game does it. Okay, so it looks pretty much identical. I don't like that. I think we should make it slightly different so it gives the player some indication at least that it's something different. So I'm going to add a bit of damage to it. And all I'm doing is just adding tiny bits of shading to the outside of the block. Is that noticeable? Not really. Let's just put an actual border around that. Like that. And I think up here, I don't think so. I think keep it to the bottom right. Yeah, that's kind of better. Right, so we've got our block. Now we need to make it destructible. So we're going to need a particle effect. Okay, so it pretty much just disappears, and then these little kind of block particles spawn out, which is really easy to do. So we don't really need to do anything with the block. Let's grab that tile background there. We may as well make it the same height as that one. We could, in fact, what I think I will do is I want to make it something that we can climb over if we jump. And then it'll just be kind of hiding on the block. There we go. What does that look like? Yeah, obviously it needs to be solid. Yeah, and again, I'm going to pixel art this thing up nice and good, if that makes sense. But I might do that off camera. So let's select this one now. Let's give it a behavior. Give it a solid behavior. So now we can jump on it and not walk directly through it, which is fine. We seem to be getting stuck. Why are we getting stuck on it? Okay, we're not getting stuck. The attack animation isn't working. What's going on? Every time we push attack, we get frozen, and let's see why that is. Attacking. If state equals whip, trigger once set animation to play from beginning. On up arrow, set state to whip, which will then play the animation. It will set attacking to true, and then on whip animation finish, set the state back to idle. So why is there a problem with that? It shouldn't make a difference, but let's just drag a copy of that down into this block here, which sets the state to idle if we're not attacking. There, I don't know why, but there you go. So if we're crouching and we attack, and then stand back up, we can't move left or right. So what's happening after we set the state to idle? On S released, when the whip animation finishes, set the state to idle. If S is down and we're not attacking, okay, let's delete not attacking from is S is down, because I think that might be, yeah, now we can't attack when we're down. But then when we stand back up, when we release it, it says if state equals crouch. We're setting the state back to idle when we release S, so I don't know why. Unless we just set it blank and then let the whatever we're doing, there we go. But now we can scoot left and right. If S is down, we set state to crouch, that's fine. But then we shouldn't be allowed to move left and right if we're crouching. Same thing as on the stairs. So let's bring that attacking back down into if S is down and we're not attacking. We can still move left and right when we're crouched, which shouldn't be the case. We should not be allowed to do that. So let's have a look. If S is down, we're not attacking and we're not overlapping a stopper, then we crouch. The problem is we're moving left and right, and the only place we have moving left and right is in the player controls. So if A is down and state is not equal to stairs and it's not equal to crouch, but it is equal to crouch when we have S down. Grab this if S is down here, just that section, hold down control, drag it up underneath A and just invert it, put it in all of these, and that's kind of hard coding it in to say don't move if S is down. And there we go, and now it works. Okay, that seems to have fixed the problem. No longer are we stuck when we let go of things. Okay, fine. Good, we're working with it. Right, okay, now we need to break that block. So we need a particle effect. Double click, let's add a particle effect. Click anywhere you like. The size of this is going to be 4x4 because a 16 by 16 block is made up of 4 of these size blocks. And in the game, they're blue. So let's see what that looks like, because, you know, why not? Let's give them a bit of shape. As if it's a block. In fact, the bottom bit of that would be darker, and then there would be a kind of highlight on it. Perhaps that. Take out a corner. I think just, yeah, we'll take out the 4 corners so it's a particle that looks like that. I'm happy with that. I'm going to shrink it down because it doesn't need to be that big. In fact, 8 by 8 would be the size of that, wouldn't it? 8 by 8. Let's see what it looks like with 4 by 4. Right, it's going to be a one shot. The spray cone is going to be 360 degrees because it's going to go out in all directions. The rate is going to be 4 because there's only going to be 4 of them, because it's going to break into 4 parts. The speed is, let's leave it at 200. The size is going to be 4 because that's the size of the block. The direction they go out in is okay. The grow rate, they're not going to get smaller. X randomizer, let's just say 10, Y randomizer 10. Obviously they travel too far at the moment, but we can fix that. Speed randomizer 20. Acceleration 0. So they're going to be just a constant speed. Speed randomizer 500. Let's bring that down. Gravity. This one we're going to need because we want them to fall to the ground. So let's give it 500. Let's give it 1,000. There we go. That's better. They're going to fall as they break. Angle randomizer. Let's do 50. No, let's put that to 0. That doesn't work at all. Opacity randomizer 0. Fade to invisible. No, we'll do timeout expire at 0.3. 0.2. But I think fade to invisible at 0.5 because they're fading out. Yeah, that looks okay. But I think the size of them need to be 8. Let's put the size at 8. No, somewhere in the middle. 6. Yeah, that's great. That works for me. That works for me. Feel free to do what you got to do. Let's drag that off. Let's give it a new name. PRT underscore block. It's a block particle. Now, we need to code this in. Add a new group. I'm going to call this one Destructibles. Is that how you spell it? Or is it with an A? Is it with an I? Destructables? Well, it says it's Destructibles. Destructible. Okay, well that's what the autocorrect says. Destructible. Yeah, fine. Capital D. Add an event. Let's just say, well, okay, now we need to code in the whip collision. Right, okay. We're going to need a new sprite. Double click. Click sprite. This one is going to be 16 by 16. And this one is going to be red because it's a collision. The image point is going to be the middle. And the opacity is going to be 50% because all of my collision boundary areas are slightly opaque. Now, this one is going to be called the hit trigger. The hit trigger. Go back into the player. Let's go to the whip animation. And then on frame 2, when the whip is fully extended, we need to go over to the image points and we need to add a new image point. This is going to be image point 1. The name of it doesn't really matter. The number is number 1 and I'm going to click right there at the end of the whip. I'm going to right click and I'm going to I'm going to apply to the whole animation. There. So it's always in the same place right there. And I'm going to close that down. Now I'm going to go back to my controls. And we're going to say on, up, arrow pressed, set attacking to true. Now, what frame is it? Whip, the first frame is frame 2. So if it's at frame 2 or 3, then we need to spawn that thing in. So add an event to player controls. We're going to say player and we're going to say is playing and the animation is going to be whip. If we're playing the whip animation, now we need to select not the block but just that little bit in the middle and push C on the keyboard and we need to do another check and we need to check the frame and we're going to say if the frame is equal to 2 then we're going to say player and we're going to spawn in another object and that object is going to be the hit trigger. It's going to be on the player layer. Oh, what am I doing? Player layer, and the image point will be 1, which is the one we just created. So it's going to be right at the end of the whip. So we're going to spawn in the hit trigger, and then we're going to wait for 0.5 seconds, and then we're going to destroy it. Hit trigger, destroy. Now, let's see what happens when we play that. There you go. Now we've got an attack zone. But what I think I'm going to do with that trigger here is I'm going to make it wider. I'm going to make the width 32, and I'm going to make the height 8. Because I want it to be long and thin, and I want the image point now. Quick assign the image point to the right. Right at the end. In fact, I'm going to change it slightly. I'm going to nudge it back so it's kind of there. So there's a little bit of kind of grace period at the end. So if they're slightly out of range, it's still going to hit them. There we go. Although the only problem is, if we're facing the other way, we need to flip that. We need to flip that sprite around. Otherwise, the whip is going to be twice as long. So let's do that. Let's select that whole block, hit B on the keyboard, let's run a check. Let's say player, and then we're going to check to see if the player is mirrored. If the player is mirrored, select the whole block, hit B again, copy that down, double click it, and then invert it and say is not mirrored. Drag all of that down onto both. Spawn in hit trigger. If mirrored, we need to go hit trigger, set mirrored, and then drag that down and say not mirrored. So that way it should, yeah, just mirror it exactly. There you go. And that's kind of cool because it's now going to just, if we're whipping in the air and we come down over the top of an enemy, there's quite a good hit zone. Perfect. Right. Now we need to go back to the destructible blocks and we need to say hit trigger. And we need to say on collision with another object, which will be sprite because we haven't named it yet. We're going to say sprite, destroy, and we're going to say sprite, and we're going to say spawn another object, and that object is going to be the particle blocks, and it's going to be on layer 0, image point 0, but we're going to do that before we destroy it. So now we should be able to destroy that block. There you go. Nice. Go back to the layout. Let's go back and select that. In fact, did we change? We didn't even change the hitbox. Make sure this is set to bounding box because the whole area is going to be the hit collision. Let's go down and make it initially visible false so it doesn't show. And while we're at it, let's just make all of these. In fact, we can do it over here. The cam zone initially false, the camera initially false, the hit trigger we've done already, the player base we've already done, the stair zone not visible, stair stopper not visible, stair stopper 2 not visible, and stopper not visible. Now the only things visible are going to be the things that we want to be visible. So we can go over the top of there. We can break the block. Cool. I like it. It's getting there. It's getting there. We can go up the stairs. We can go through doors. Why is that stopper not invisible? And why have we stopped on the stairs? I don't know. Problems for another time. I'm going to leave it there. We're getting along. I think between now and the next episode, I think I'm going to start making the pixel art a little bit more visually appealing. I really like to make the game look like a game as I'm developing it. Otherwise, I just kind of, it's not the motivation. I like to see the game its potential as I go. So I think we're going to pretty up some of these sprites, and then we're going to need to add in some enemies is probably going to be the next thing, or some pickups. I'm not sure, one of the two things, but either way, that's what we're going to be doing next. So thanks for sticking around if you made it this far, and I'll see you in the next episode.